Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Crime Wire Weekly. I'm Jim Chapman. And guess what? Today we have no topics we're going to tell you in advance. It was a plan from the beginning. That's what I'm sticking with, right, Kelly Jennings?
Yeah, we definitely weren't running late.
Yeah, we definitely weren't running late and had to scramble to get together what we were going to talk about today. And I didn't have time to write it down. So guess what? It's going to be surprise week for our listeners out there. I hope you enjoy that.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We got this. We're professionals, Jim.
We are pros. So let's get into this beautiful bean footage for today. And
hey, wait, you introduced yourself. Should I introduce myself?
Well, I said Kelly Jennings. Okay. Everybody knows you already.
I got it.
All right. Go ahead.
And I'm Kelly Jennings.
All right. How did that feel?
Great.
Awesome. Can we get into the stories now?
Sure.
Let's get into them. And we're going to start off in Michigan today.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you about two adults and a child who disappeared, Kelly, after going tubing. Well, they've been found safe and alive in the woods, and some people are considering this just flat out miracle. They were gone for several days. It was two women and a 9-year-old boy. They were tubing in what's known as the Muskegon River. That is in Michigan. And they were there for 3 days, stranded in the wilderness before they were actually saved. Jasmine Hawk, who is 28, her cousin Sarah Vita, who is 28, Vita's son, who is named Caden, he's 9. They were all located this past Friday afternoon by state police, a K-9 team, and the Department of Natural Resources Conservation officers. They were discovered deep in the woods about 3/4 of a mile northeast of a boat launch in Muskegon County. They were several miles downstream from where they actually put in at that boat launch on Maple Island. And Michigan State Police said the three were alive. They were safe. He described it as Lieutenant Pat Agma described it as amazing and a miracle. He noted the group was in a remote area far from roads and houses. He said they were tired and worn out, and 2 of them had to actually be carried out of the woods. You don't think about it, but 72 hours, that's 3 days, right? That's a long time without food. And I mean, I would imagine they drank something, but it probably wasn't much, and it was probably out of the stream. And, you know, they don't have the little capsules you can put in there like the military does where it purifies the water. So that's a good bit of time. They went tubing, and concerns started growing when Hawk missed a scheduled medical appointment the day after their tubing trip. Her father later found one of the women's vehicles still parked at that boat launch with a broken window. So obviously police get involved, and that doesn't look good. Searchers recovered tubes believed to have belonged to the group, and they located footprints before they were able to find them on, this occurred on a Wednesday or Tuesday. They were actually able to locate them on a Friday. Family members said the group had used pool rafts that were not suited for the river. So yeah, these ain't tubing like you go around here. We have tiki tubing. Places like that where there are these heavy duty tubes. They were actually taking like their pool floats and going tubing with it. Yeah, you don't want to do that. That's pretty thin.
Is that something that's normally done there? Like that people just get in that river like that?
Apparently not. I mean, it says the group had used pool rafts that were not suited for the river, and the floats were destroyed. So I would imagine not too many people, use, I don't know, very thin residential pool rafts, if you will. So they survived off flowers, bark, and ants. What do you think about that?
That's an interesting choice, but I would be scared. I'll tell you.
Interesting. Well, they didn't have a menu.
No, but like,
should we eat the ants or the bark tonight?
Well, I'm just thinking I would have focused more on the flowers. I don't know that I want to swallow an ant, but I mean, it's something when you're starving. I guess it's something to put in your mouth.
Yeah.
I would have been scared too. Like, mushrooms, certain ones can kill you, and if you don't know, like you're just taking a risk.
Yeah, you eat a poisonous mushroom, you can be seeing the spirit horse and everything else.
Yeah.
You can be high as a kite. So also to complicate matters, even with the lack of food, is that Hawk's phone battery died, and that totally cut off any way to get any sort of help. All 3, they were picked up after they were found, taken to the hospital for treatment. And 2 of the 3 are still in the hospital, but everybody's going to survive all that stuff. And it was an emotional moment for family. They actually have some body camera footage if you're interested. You can look online, and it's pretty interesting. You can see the husbands and kids of these people being reunited with them, and they probably resigned to the fact that they're not going to make it out of here.
I do wonder something, and I'm just curious, why didn't they just walk back up the river where they had put in? Why did they?
Well, I think they were so far down river by the point that, apparently as I said, these boat rafts popped or whatever, and probably jagged rocks, things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they were making their way back and got lost. I don't know.
I don't know what the terrain would be, but for me, I would have gotten out and walked just back the direction I came from. But then again, I don't know all the details. So
yeah, you'd end up in Canada somewhere.
I probably would have ended up with 3rd-degree sunburns, and y'all would have found me a crispy piece of bacon laying by the riverside, getting eaten by a dadgum deer,
chewing on some ants. And,
golly,
and bark. Well, there you have it. Good ending to that story. They were found, and they're all going to be okay.
That's great. So we're going to go to Louisiana. We're not far from here. We're actually right here in this story, where a 63-year-old Denham Springs woman has been arrested and booked into the Ascension Parish Jail on multiple charges stemming from a 3-boat crash on the Amite River in July that left 4 people injured, and that's all according to the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries. Nanette Normand, that's a lot of N's, Nanette Normand. I can't say that quickly.
Is it Nanette or Nanette?
I would have said Nanette, but I'm Southern South, so whatever. Miss Nan was taken into custody Monday and charged with careless operation of a vessel, failing to file an official operator's report, and 4 counts of negligent injuring. The crash occurred July 18th, where 2 adults and 2 juveniles were ejected from their vessel and transported to local hospitals. An adult female remained hospitalized from injuries sustained in the incident. According to Wildlife and Fisheries, careless operation of a vessel carries a maximum penalty of a $300 fine and 30 days in jail. Each count of negligent injuring and the failure to file an official operator's report carries a maximum of a $500 fine and 6 months in jail. Earlier reporting on the July 18th crash described the collision involving 3 boats around 8:20 p.m. One family, a couple and their 2 young children, were ejected after what the husband described as an oncoming boat that failed to yield properly. The fiancé suffered or sustained serious injuries, including multiple fractures and other trauma that required surgery and hospitalization. Wildlife and Fisheries investigated the incident. But 3 boats and 1 crash. That's a lot.
And, boating safety, unfortunately, when you hear about crashes with boats, it's usually really bad. We had one here a couple of years ago that killed several people. And it was at night that this boat crash occurred. And it was horrific, obviously, but almost every time you see accidents involving boats, people are seriously injured or killed because it's just different than a car. I mean, you don't wear a seatbelt in a boat. Of course, everybody needs to be wearing life preservers, things like that. But
it's
traffic laws are, it's a lot easier to stop at a red light than or yield at a yield sign than to do that on a river, because they don't have signs. Right. You have to know the navigational rules. And I think that's why you see a lot of these accidents is people don't even know or pay attention to the navigational rules.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into being a captain of your boat. And I sometimes get very nervous when I see that a lot of people, they'll turn out their teenagers and stuff on the river and let them just go take the boat and go do what they do. And you wonder, why is everybody so comfortable just letting people go out on that river without some sort of, we have driver's ed and we have all that kind of stuff for when you're driving, but boaters, it's kind of like they just jump out on the water.
Yeah, they do. So, prayers to those affected by that, and they're not playing in this area with boating safety. Yeah. They've got a whole department in Livingston Parish where we record out of that is a marine division. That's all they do is go up and down the river, and they are a department, employed by the sheriff's office. So it's not wildlife and fisheries. They have their own marine division, which I think is pretty cool.
Well, my brother-in-law was killed in a boating accident, and it was because there's a lot of stuff involved, but another boat was not properly navigating the waterway.
Yeah.
And he ended up dying as a result of that accident. And so, it's personal, when people you love get killed, and boating is a fun pastime, but you have a lot at stake, and you have to be in control and man your vehicle, or you can cost people their lives.
100%. And I used to couldn't stand them wildlife and fishery guys because I used to look at them as guys that were just killing your fun, right?
Yeah.
You ain't got a life jacket on. Let me see your life jackets. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. And now, as I got older, this is when I was 18, I had this attitude. Now, as I got older, I realized what they were doing. But back then, I just thought, these guys are just giving people a hard time. I mean, who cares about life jackets? But now, especially when you do this for a living, cover crime, wear your life jackets. All right, let's go to another area of the country here, and we're going to talk about a middle school teacher who is the first, and this is in Kentucky, the first teacher to be arrested under the new grooming law in Kentucky. And that's interesting because here in Louisiana, they just passed the grooming law here.
And we just
recently.
covered that, yeah.
We just covered it. So this is a good example of a case where this law was used. I'm going to tell you about it. Graves County middle school teacher Sadie Flores, who is 25, was busted Friday and charged with grooming a minor 4 years after marrying her husband, who is a machine operator, and only a year after giving birth to their first child, which is her daughter. As a matter of fact, she had a Facebook post where she put, "We are so grateful God chose us to be parents of the sweet baby." So the reason I bring that up is you just never know who people are sometimes.
No.
And they're one person on Facebook and a whole nother person in reality. This is allegedly a good example of that if all these charges are true. Now, so what happened here was police said that she attempted to manipulate a minor and expressed feelings of love and admiration more so than a student-teacher relationship. That's what the citation read. Police have not revealed the alleged victim's age, but school board officials were contacted by a parent of a 14-year-old. So they're making the assumption this person was 14. The parent said that they had found text allegedly shared by Flores and the child, and they were deemed not to be of a legitimate purpose and were not school related. The educator and the student also met in secret before a school function outside of school that she was not directly a part of. That, according to the Graves County Sheriff's Office. They also allegedly had late night FaceTime calls that the parents were not aware of, according to police. So it's not clear how long Flores and the child were allegedly messaging before she was actually arrested. Flores has been charged with grooming a minor under a law that took effect there in Kentucky on July 15th, and the law allows cops to charge predators before sexual assault occurs. Teachers must also take part in sessions focused on preventing grooming. It's not clear when she will appear in court, and it's not clear if she's entered a plea yet, but it is clear that she's in a lot of trouble. And, this is a very pretty 25-year-old lady.
Let me tell you what, this right here, everything that you've said that allegedly has taken place in that article is absolutely grooming, because there is no reason whatsoever that I, as a teacher, share my cell phone number with a student, especially a student of the opposite sex. Back in the day, maybe, 15, 20 years ago, if they were in you were a coach of them or something like that, and you needed to be in contact with your kids so you could find them whenever you get to the schools and stuff. But we have too many programs today in 2026. There are too many applications that are provided to teachers for a communication forum that is regulated, monitored, and will keep you out of trouble and will make sure that everything is on the up and up. There's different platforms for that, and it is preached to teachers. Do not have personal contact with the student. And I'm going to tell you something else. I can't think of any reason that a teacher outside of school, late at night, needs to be FaceTiming a student. Why would you need to be FaceTiming a student?
When you're up to no good.
Exactly. There is no reason.
FaceTiming.
Yeah, FaceTiming them. Now,
meaning you're wanting to see them on
or show them
phone camera.
Or right? Show them something. It's totally inappropriate. And if I was on my phone FaceTiming a kid, and I don't know what grade she taught, but even if it was an older kid. Like, my husband would find that weird. Why are you FaceTiming that kid? So that tells me that was done also. I doubt the husband had any concept of any of this going on. And it's a beautiful example, allegedly, until we go to court here, but it's a beautiful example of that potentially saving a child from, a situation that would have been out of the parent's control.
14-year-old, yeah. And, there's a picture. You can look up their pictures online if you want to. If you're watching this on video, you're seeing the picture. But it looks like she's got a handsome husband, got a young baby there. Face is blurred out, which it should be. I agree with that. But just looks like a beautiful young family. You're starting off your life together, and this girl is grooming, allegedly, a 14-year-old boy. Now, until I got familiar with this article, I wondered, I'm like, these grooming laws are going to be kind of hard to prove because you got to prove someone's intent, right? And sometimes it's hard to prove someone's intent unless you have stuff like this. In her case, they've got proof that she was texting and saying, I love you and stuff. That's obvious grooming. And that is where this law really comes into play and is really going to be something able to stand up in court. When you have a paper record of it, you don't, I think it's great in that case because you don't actually have to have sex to get charged with something.
Nor should you. And I think that the law is great. There should be a high standard here. There should be it should meet the muster of egregious, because that's what grooming is. It's leading to something that's going to be horrendous. So if she was overcharged, I'm hard pressed to believe it based on what I'm reading on the report, because I just can't understand any time that you would be texting a child like this, that you're not their coach. It's not your event it's not like you're at a school event and the kid's trying to figure out where to go. Oh, hey, I can remember, years and years and years ago, 20 years ago when you're teaching kids and, you'd go to a sporting event where kids drive themselves because they're seniors, and you're like, hey guys, meet behind the library because we're all going to be over here to take pictures or whatever. And I totally get that. But because of stuff like this, there's no excuse.
No excuse.
There's no excuse. And I guarantee she probably signed paperwork too at the beginning of the school year that there is an electronic policy between you as a teacher and students, and there is not to be communication on any forum except the approved applications through the school board. So you knew better.
100%.
No way. All right. So this case is actually kind of a follow-up to when it first broke, but we're going to go to Indianapolis, where a 23-year-old man has been sentenced to 76 years in prison after pleading guilty to child molestation and rape in connection with a 2024 home invasion. On June 29th of 24, police were called to a home after receiving a report of a rape. Responding officers made contact with a woman who said that both she and her daughter, who was 12 years old, so both mom and child, had been raped at gunpoint. As a mom, to think that would not only be happening to me in front of my child, but then to be helpless while it happened to your child in front of each other, that's just beyond. But they had both been raped at gunpoint. She stated that a masked man, later identified as Teshawn Gardner, came to the home, showed her his gun, and told her to let him in. Gardner then raped her and asked if she was alone after looking at family photos on the wall. Gardner reportedly walked down the hall to the woman's daughter's room and raped the child at gunpoint. He filmed both attacks on his cell phone. Gardner stayed in the home for about an hour, according to the reports, and two other children, ages 1 and 8, were also in the home at the time. WXIN reports police tracked down the suspect using cameras and arrested him during a traffic stop. In an interview, Gardner was asked if he had any tattoos and told authorities he had one on his stomach. Authorities confirmed it matched the description given by the victims. He was charged with 19 counts of rape, child molestation, and sexual battery. On August 6th, he pled guilty to one charge each of rape and child molestation and was sentenced to 38 years for each charge.
I almost feel like he should have got more than that.
That's aggravated rape of a child under the age of 13. That should be on death row.
It should be at least life in prison. I mean, for each count. And it's, he's not getting, I never say never, because I have seen people get out that you would never think would, but 38 years on each count. He's got 19 counts. So if you do the math, that's 600 years, something like that, which is essentially a life sentence.
Yeah, but he only pled guilty to one charge each.
Right. But was there not 19 separate charges?
Yeah, it's not very clear on here if he pled.
Well, if he only got 38 years total, that's not enough for that, in my opinion. But you see that a lot with these, these sexual assault cases that are not murders, that plea deals are worked, things like that. And sometimes that's where you land, unfortunately.
Right. Yep.
All right, let's talk about flock cameras, Kelly.
All right.
So for those of you not familiar with this, I'm gonna give you a scenario that has occurred. So a paper has been written about this, but there's a huge debate, and Flock is a brand that makes cameras that can read license plates. Okay. So Flock cameras are not specific cameras per se. There are several different companies that make these digital license plate readers. And Flock is one of the companies that offers contracts to police departments and things like that for this. But Flock is the biggest one. And they are the one causing the most controversy, especially here in Louisiana right now, because law-abiding citizens almost consider this harboring or creating an issue of my privacy and privacy laws. So we're going to talk about it, but I'm going to give you an example of where a leaked document revealed that Flock, the surveillance company, planned to tap roughly 350,000 rideshare drivers for data collection. So Flock Safety, which is the company behind a nationwide network of automatic license plate readers, they pitched a plan, and they basically went to Uber and Lyft, and they said, look, we want to put Flock camera digital readers on every Lyft and Uber driver that will agree to it, and we'll kick in a little money for that or whatever. And we want to create a database of license plates, okay, like your state government would have. But Flock would have this data, a private company. Okay, so the document, which was leaked by a guy, written by a guy named Joseph Cox, described equipping drivers with dash cams capable of scanning license plates along their route, effectively expanding Flock's network beyond its usual fixed cameras mounted on poles. So right now, it's just poles with a solar camera on the top that is reading these license plate. The presentation centered on a proposed partnership with Nexar, which is a maker of dash cams, biggest maker in the world probably. And so they were trying to partner with them and say, hey, when you make dash cams, I want this software automatically installed. And that way we can just build a database of everyone's license plate, whether they're law abiding or not. And this has created a little bit of an issue, but there was a lot of issue before this just on Flock cameras in general. Now, and Kelly, I'll let you go and talk about your feelings on it, and then I'll kind of tell you my feelings on it, because I'm back. There's some ways I like it, and there's some ways I don't like it.
Well, I think that the first hang up that people have is why. Like, why do you want to collect that data? And I don't find that to be 1,000% clear on exactly why you want the data, which makes people nervous. Why do you want it? However, there's already, city buses and things like that that are equipped with cameras and footage that are going to record your move-abouts through the city and all of that. Now, I'm not sure that those are necessarily logging you by license plate or not, because I don't know. But I mean, you don't have a right to privacy out in public. Okay, so I think that this comes down to what exactly the argument's going to be about. Is the argument that there's too much control and too much ability to track and follow people? Well, to that, I would counter your cell phone's tracking everything you do every second down to the letter of your movements, and you're being tracked by all sorts of things. So again, I think this kind of goes back to the question of what is that data collection for? And I would want to know more about that specifically before I understood, what are the ramifications from it and why, and what is the limit? Is there a limit? Are there rules to why this data collection is done? And I'm not well versed enough in the law or in the long reach goal of the flock cameras in that regard. I do like the flock cameras insofar as if people are stealing, or if we have people that are on the run, that we can read license. I do like that we can read the license plates, kidnappings, silver alerts, amber alerts. There's no doubt that it helps to solve crimes. Matter of fact, the case that I'm going to cover next week on Unspeakable, that's going to come into play as to solving a very horrific murder. So there's pros and cons.
There certainly are, and that's why I go back and forth on it, because I've covered cases where, were it not for we'll say license plate readers, because Flock is just a brand. There's several different brands out there, but were it not for those license plate readers, a kidnapping suspect wouldn't have been caught before something horrible happened. That happens all the time with these cameras. I think the issue is, and where some people would maybe debate you on the cell phone theory, because I agree with that as well. I think the major difference is they can't track you from sitting in a location, in a police department. Okay, we'll just say that they can't track your phone from just sitting there. But if you have flock cameras, they can literally pick up your entire route to and from without you ever knowing about it. They would have to download your cell phone to figure out where you've been, for most people. Now, if you're a law-abiding citizen, a lot of people say, who cares? I don't care if they follow me all day long, but you're really staunch constitutionalist people consider it a violation of privacy to be able to follow you everywhere. Now, my argument to that in some ways was, they could get behind you and follow you on the road. We've done surveillance for years. What flock cameras do, or any sort of camera like that, is they just make it easier. They make it quicker. But, the FBI for years has been sitting outside people's apartment and watching them, and following them everywhere they go. Ask the mafia.
So the thing here is that if maybe this is huge. Okay, this is a big thing. We can't sum it up, obviously, in 1 minute talking about the topic. But if there was a level of clearance required, like probable cause to be able to access said information, that would be kind of where this would need to be going, because you shouldn't be able to just flagrantly follow somebody about, because what could happen there is, I'm just saying, what if it got into the wrong hands of the wrong person, who then says, well, it was open access at my job, I wasn't breaking any rules, and then they're following and stalking somebody that you never know what people are doing. It just could open up doors.
Oh, it certainly happens. Yeah.
So like in a police unit, I know rules and law, everything everywhere is different, every state, but like locally, there's no reason to be running people through your system unless you have a reason within the scope of your job to be doing so. There's already rules in place. Police officers don't need to be searching Trump in the system in the vehicle. It's going to flag it, because why are you looking up somebody that you're not having an interaction with, or if anybody for that matter, big profile names? There's already systems in place for people of higher stature, I guess you could say, and security clearance.
There should be a system in place for everybody.
Exactly. So, it should meet the muster of, in the scope of your job, you have probable cause or a reason to be doing so. It's not just an open access database for anybody. I think it's a tool just like anything else, but I'm
not exactly sure what the law is here in Louisiana, but I can tell you there are several states, many states, in fact, that you can run license plates as a police officer just willy-nilly. You can go in a parking lot and literally run every license plate in that parking lot, just see if they have warrants. And if it shows up they have a warrant, now you can't stop somebody. You can't run a license plate and know this person's doing nothing wrong, they're driving down the road, and then stop them. But you can run the plate to see if they have warrants, and then that gives you the probable cause. Yeah,
but you don't know if that's who's driving that car either. So,
but that is the law in many states. You can in fact do that.
Well,
many states.
I'm going to tell you that every state's different. So,
what's the law here?
I'm telling you what the policy here was. Last time I was in the position was that you've got to have a reason to be running a plate. You've got to have a reason to be doing it. If not, why are you in? Because the database is intended for criminal apprehension or for verification of no warrant or something like that, or driving under a suspended license or something like that. So why would you run the plate unless you had a reason to be running the plate? Now, if you know that Joe Blow, you believe Joe Blow, there's an investigation that he was involved in an armed robbery and drove a blue car, and then you're in Walmart, then you have probable cause. Right. But to just be running plates, I don't know why you would do that. Like, I don't even know why someone would want to do that.
There are a lot of states where they do it, and they will literally go in a parking lot and run plates until they find someone with warrants, and then they'll basically pick him up.
That might be,
or she.
That it may be legal, but policy is what I'm going to follow as far as an agency goes. So maybe that was maybe that was a certain, maybe they have a certain. I
think it was Colorado, if I'm not mistaken, that I read that about.
Might be, but maybe they have a task force or something where they are out and being proactive, and they're looking to try to clear up and close some cases. So there's a lot to it, but. Flock cameras in general, you're on camera multiple times a day. Driving is a privilege, not a right. So,
yeah, but being on camera multiple times a day doesn't track you. There's a difference when you're on camera multiple times a day because you pass a bank or you pass someone happened to be on the road with a dash cam. There's a difference between that and being able to track somebody's movements. Once that thing takes a picture, it's in the database, and they can literally track you for a year.
But it would depend
and never see you.
It would depend on where the flock camera, though, was stationed. But in this case, they're wanting to put them on all these cars, so it's constantly moving about.
Oh, yeah. And in Baton Rouge, you've got over 100.
Yeah.
Over 100. You can go to dflock.org, and you can actually see where every flock or license plate reader is, because what it is it's regular citizens. It's a nonprofit that when they see the cameras, they actually log in the coordinates to this whatever it is, dflog.com or .org.
I just want more information on what it's going to be used for, and what are the stipulations what are the protections in place for this? And I feel like we're not getting enough of that information. And so I would give pushback for those reasons.
Yeah.
And this is going to probably become very big. Much bigger than it already is, because it does bring about a lot of questions of why am I being tracked, and why would you have the authority to do so just because?
It does. And law enforcement is always going to have a different perspective because they're out there enforcing laws. So, if you ask someone that's in law enforcement, okay, if you weren't in law enforcement, how would you feel about this? Their opinion may be different. They may be like, you know what, you're right. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I don't want people to know where I'm going. It's none of their business.
Well, and then it also,
but on the other side of that, why would they care?
But what if you were frequenting like a gentleman's club and you didn't want people to know that? Or what if you were frequenting some kind of place that that's your private life, wherever you're going is legal and you have a right to be there and all that. But then now it's like, well, what if you were in a certain position that if that information got out, it would affect your job or your how you were seen,
your marriage
really though. So we shouldn't be tracking people for sure for morality reasons. I mean, we don't legislate morality.
Yeah.
Jim, how many spouses should someone get away with killing before we raise an eyebrow?
Probably one.
Just get away with one?
I mean, get away with. I thought you meant how many people should they actually kill? I don't know.
It's just my point is that shouldn't even be a question I'm asking. That's so bizarre. So Yolanda Marodi pled guilty to manslaughter in connection with the stabbing death of her husband in 2000. So this is like brutal, a stabbing death. She was sentenced to 10 years in prison and was released in November of 2013. On August the 4th, she pled guilty to fatally stabbing her second spouse, Rebecca Marodi, on February 17th of 25. The couple had been married for 2 years, and Rebecca had recently sought to leave the marriage. According to an arrest warrant obtained, home surveillance footage captured a blood-covered Rebecca Marodi being chased by Yolanda, saying, "Yolanda, please, I don't want to die." That's a quote, end quote. And she responded with, "You should have thought of that before." Rebecca repeatedly asked Marodi to dial 911 before the couple went back inside. Home surveillance footage showed Marodi leaving the residence about 10 minutes later. She placed several items into her car and then left. Rebecca was found by her mother inside the couple's home dead from multiple stab wounds. Approximately 75 minutes after killing her wife, Marodi crossed the border into Mexico. According to the San Diego County District Attorney's Office, She then sent a text the following day that said, quote, Becky came home and told me she was leaving me. She met somebody else. All the messages were lies. We had a big fight and I hurt her. I'm sorry. Marody was arrested on March 22nd of 25 in Mexicali, Mexico, and she was then transferred to the U.S. by the marshals through a U.S. port of entry and booked into jail on suspicion of murder. She then, on August 4th, pled guilty to second-degree murder and admitted that she used a knife to kill her wife. She entered a plea deal that lowered the charge from first-degree to second-degree murder, and the district attorney, Jared Coleman, said the deal was a consideration of many factors, maybe the most important of which was the desire of the victim's family for closure. Rebecca had served as a firefighter since 1992. She had been promoted to captain in 2022, and she also served as the caretaker of her elderly mother. According to her obituary, at the age of 17, Becky answered a different kind of calling, the fire service. With unwavering dedication and bravery, she embarked on a career that was more than just a job. It was her passion. Becky's commitment to protecting others and her fearless spirit made her a respected and admired member of the firefighting community. And it continued, saying that she faced every challenge with strength and grace. She will be remembered for her infectious smile, kind heart, and the way she always put others before herself. Her love for her family and her friends was boundless, and her impact will never be forgotten. Marody is scheduled to be sentenced on September 2nd, and she faces 36 years to life in prison.
Well, she deserves every bit of that, it sounds like to me.
Stabs 2 spouses to death.
Yeah. Yeah, they married the wrong woman.
My God. And she doesn't look, I know we always say this, but she just doesn't look like what you would expect.
What would you expect?
Yeah.
That's the question. Horrific.
Terrible.
Horrific. Let's go into Wisconsin. And a Wisconsin mother and her adult son have sued a retired fertility doctor, and they allege he used his own sperm to impregnate her without her knowledge or consent more than 40 years ago. Can't make that up.
Wait, say it again. He impregnated his own mother?
Well, I'm going to tell you the story.
Oh.
No, not his own mother.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed
A Wisconsin woman and her son are suing an OBGYN they claim used his own sperm to impregnate her.
Oh, the doctor. Okay, sorry.
That's all right.
Punctuation matters.
Without her consent and potentially other patients. The complaint was filed in Milwaukee County Circuit Court by Mary Ellen Lujic and her son Joseph. In 1980, the 25-year-old Marianne, at that time, she and her husband Thomas, they were trying to expand their family, right? So they go do what you would do in 1980, and they went to an OBGYN, and this is at the early days of fertility studies, right? And they talked to Dr. Frederick Dietman, and he says, hey, there's this new thing out. It's called artificial insemination, and we can use your husband's sperm, or rather use sperm from an anonymous donor. And so this anonymous donor that they were able to choose was a medical student. They didn't know his name, but apparently, I didn't know this, but you can kind of choose the type of individual you want, if you will. I want someone that's tall. Well, I know that now, but
it's because a friend of mine told me they did this.
Yeah,
and
I know someone that did it as well.
Choose factors that would make, and her goal was, I want my children to look like my husband, and so that's how she chose.
Yeah, I have a very good friend that just had her daughter just had a baby, and that's how they did it. They did like a 6'4" blue-eyed man. I
want a stud muffin.
Yeah, why not? So anyway, they go. This is 1980. And they start doing artificial insemination, and as typical, it doesn't work the first few times, and they keep going back. And eventually, in 1982, Marianne does in fact become pregnant, and she gives birth to a baby, Joseph, the following year. But decades later, in 2024, things took an unexpected turn when Joseph, he does what everybody's been doing these days, that have really been telling the tale, if you will, of what people were doing in the 80s, because Joseph says, I'm going to go to Ancestry.com and do a DNA thing. I'm going to track my heritage and all that stuff. He does that, and guess what he finds out? His biological father is the doctor. Yeah. So it also revealed multiple half siblings and other family members who he had never even known existed, right? So according to the attorney, Dietman never told, Dietman being the doctor, never told this lady, hey, I'm going to use my sperm to implant in you. And of course, at this point in time, she's feeling pretty violated. She didn't, yes, you choose an anonymous donor, but if you don't specifically tell the doctor, I want your sperm, it seems like this doctor was shady, right?
Yeah, it's a one-sided secret, and that's not fair.
Well, and she chose a specific person. She didn't know his name, but she chose this medical student, whoever this person was. That's who I want. This doctor put it on himself to impregnate this woman, and basically she had his baby. And in addition to that, they are thinking that he had something to do with other pregnancies as well now.
Oh, I would believe that. Yeah.
But it's interesting that Ancestry.com and 123andMe or whatever it is, man, they are really busting some people. There's some people out there that have kids that aren't really their kids, and they're not finding out until these kids are adults. Mm-hmm. And they're basically going and doing these genealogy tests and finding out their daddy ain't their daddy. And then mama's like, what?
Uh-oh.
I don't know what you're talking about.
What had happened was...
Yeah, you never foresaw that 20 years ago,
right?
That you could literally just send your blood off in the mail to a company, and they can come back and show you a family tree based off of everybody that's done that same DNA test. So.
Yeah. I would have questions about this, about whether it was that she chose one person and he switched it with his, or did he have his profile in there that he was a medical student whenever he filled it out?
No. The doctor intentionally inserted his sperm into this lady.
No, I'm not doubting that. What I'm saying is, I wonder if he had been a sperm donor and had filled out that was his donor card, and then he eventually went on and became a doctor, and so he knows what he's doing is wrong. But what I'm saying is, I'm wondering if he's going to try to get away with it by saying, well, no, that was actually my card. I am a sperm donor. I just never told her that she had chosen me. If I was a defense attorney... What? Are you understand what I'm saying, though?
I don't think that's even in the realm of possibility.
Well,
Unbelievable.
If he was a medical student...
I get what you're saying. I'm saying I don't think that's even in the realm of possibility of occurring.
Well, I don't know how they get
He was the doctor, and he gave her his sperm.
I don't know how they do their database. I don't know if a certain fertility clinic has certain donors that only they use at that clinic, or if it's a national database and they can mail it. I mean, it seems like it has to be fresh. I don't know. I've never looked into the rules and regulations of how that's done. I'd be interested to know, though, but I'd be pissed, because if it's supposed to be an anonymous donor, that's supposed to be a two-way street, and this is not anonymous if one side knows the secret.
Yeah, that's the problem. I think that's the major issue, aside from the fact, hey, this doctor could have been 5'2" and ugly. Yeah. And maybe this lady was, I'm not saying that, but people look at looks, and heck, if you can choose your kid and know exactly what they're going to look like, you're going to pick what you find attractive. Everybody's going to do that. And this guy may not have been it. I don't know.
I don't know either. But when your kid ends up looking like your doctor, it's like, wow, y'all really look similar.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. And, this lady's still alive. It's not like she's dead. I mean, she knows that this all took place, and her son is now a grown man. I'm sure she loves him very much.
Absolutely. But I would still feel violated as well. I think she has a huge leg to stand on here and say that this is...
Yeah, they're going to get some money out of this.
And they should. Right here in Denham Springs, a Russian nationalist was taken into custody after Livingston Parish deputies discovered nearly 800 pounds of methamphetamine concealed inside an 18-wheeler during a traffic stop on Interstate 12. 800 pounds. My goodness. So the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office K-9 Division conducted the traffic stop in Denham Springs, and deputies identified the driver as Anton Rakov, is how I think you would say it. The middle name, I'm not even going to try. It's like Vitalyevich. Either way, And he was described as a deportable Russian national. Raykov was taken into custody due to his immigration status. A subsequent investigation into the tractor trailer led LPSO narcotics to approximately 358.14 kilos or 789.5 pounds of meth concealed inside the trailer. The sheriff's office described the seizure as one of the largest meth seizures in Livingston Parish and Louisiana history. The investigation is still ongoing. Raykov remains in ICE custody, and they're still checking into this. And you can see in the pictures just bricks of this being stacked up. Our sheriff, I think he's 6'3". That's about right?
Sheriff Ward's about 6'3".
Yeah, he's a tall fella.
Yeah.
He's standing next to it, and it is way up there, and it's 2 layers deep. 2 rows deep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I actually talked to several individuals today at LPSO about this bust, and it's interesting that this guy was a Russian national, but these drugs came from Mexico. Mm-hmm. So it was a cartel bust. Obviously, when you have that much, I mean, your regular meth lab in somewhere Timbuktu is not going to produce 800 pounds at one time.
And it's packaged nice. It's
yeah, and that's what I was going to get to is when you look at the picture, it looks like a stack of silver bars. So when I initially saw that article, I thought they had, for whatever reason, repossessed like 800 pounds of silver. And I was going to hit up the sheriff and say, hey, how do I buy that? Can I buy that at like 50% off or something? I'll bring you a check. I mean, it looks exactly like silver bars, but that's how they package this stuff. They wrap it a certain way, and how each cartel actually packages these differently. There's actually markings on this stuff to identify what cartel it's from, which is crazy to me because it's an illegal drug.
The cartel doesn't care.
And so you're like basically branding your own form of, heroin or whatever, meth in this case. And but I'll tell you what, 800 pounds. So a kilo is 2.2 pounds. So I think they had this broke down in kilos, and it was just a massive amount. What is that? Close to 1,700 pounds or something.
Why do you always ask me a math
or
question?
1,700 kilos. A ton of meth.
It's funny that you go to the actual
and to be
math.
all serious about it. What?
I was gonna say it's funny you go to the actual math, and I'm trying to describe it to them and how tall the sheriff is, how tall the stack is.
Well, in all seriousness, there's no telling how many lives that saved. In all seriousness, all joking aside, that is one serious addicting drug. I don't, thank God, know that by experience, but I know people that have suffered, being addicted to it, and it is horrible. And so you take 800 pounds off the street, you've done some good.
And this guy better pray to his maker that he remains in ICE custody, because there is a cartel that is going to end him whenever.
Oh yeah, I had thought about that too. I'm like, whoever, because at first I thought it was a Russian cartel, and I'm like, when he gets back, Putin is going to be pissed. And but apparently he's getting deported. He'll eventually get deported back to Russia because that's where he's from. But the Mexican cartel is going to be looking for him for sure.
He's got a bounty.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff dope to get busted with, and the cartel will lose. Yep. But I don't feel bad for him.
Me either.
Good job, LPSO, for another bust, man. They've had some big ones lately. All right, let's go to Florida, and I'm going to tell you, this is just a wild story right here. A guy by the name of Brian Rosado, he pleaded guilty to kidnapping, sexual battery of a victim younger than 18, and 75 counts of possession of child sexual abuse material. So for this, he gets sentenced to 25 years in prison after accepting a plea deal. Absolutely disgusting. Despite Florida's sentencing guidelines, which they're usually pretty tough on this stuff, the guidelines recommend a minimum sentence of 330 years. He gets 25 years. His sentence will be followed by 15 years of probation, and he'll obviously have to be required to register as a sex offender. Whoopee. He should be in prison the whole time for this. But to tell you what happened this guy approached a group of teenagers at an apartment complex, and he offered one of them $20 to buy him food at a nearby Burger King. When a 13-year-old girl returned with his order, he grabbed her from behind, forced her into his car, and he just drives off. He drives this girl for several hours just around town. He eventually takes her to a neighborhood that's under construction, and he sexually assaults her. At one point, she rolls down the window and screams for help before he stopped her from escaping and locked the doors and windows and continued this assault. Investigators identified him after receiving a tip and matched both his vehicle and cell phone to the victim's account. The investigators later recovered 20 videos depicting portions of the assault. So he was videoing this entire thing, along with dozens of files that were identified as child CSAM material from his cell phone. Before accepting the plea agreement, the judge questioned prosecutors about the significant difference between the recommended sentence and the negotiated plea deal. So even the judge is looking at this saying, I mean, he's at a minimum should get 30 years and y'all give him 25 years. The prosecutors tell the judge the victim supported the agreement because it spared her the mental and emotional anguish of testifying at trial. And that was an interesting thing for me because until I got to that point in the story, I was like, this is crazy. In this case, apparently the victim did not want to testify and was begging prosecutors, please do whatever you can to make a deal with this guy. And I can certainly feel for her and understand why she would feel that way. Defense attorney Gabriel Biggs also said that Rosado's lack of a criminal history, his apparent remorse is how that was verbalized, and decision to plead guilty without requiring the victim to testify justified the sentence. Under Florida law, he does have to serve 85% of that sentence before becoming eligible for release.
This I have to tell you, prosecutors have a job to do, and we would love, you'd love to throw the book at him. We as society is what I was going to say, but we would love to throw the book at him and give him the max. But there is something to be said about the victim ultimately being the one that feels like justice was served and that they got out of it what they wanted. And so if the victim desperately did not want to testify and there's a lot of pressure to not have that happen, I guess it's hard to argue with the family of the victim if they say this is we would really, really like to spare them. But I don't understand the massive decrease though. Why was it decrease? I mean, you have video and stuff too. I don't know.
I mean, maybe he wouldn't agree to it unless it was 25 years.
Anything
over that, maybe. Well, that's not what they did.
I know, but
I'll tell you my feelings on this, and I want to preface this with I totally understand where this young lady's going through, not what she's going through, but where she's going with this, and that she doesn't want to relive it. She doesn't want to testify. I hate plea deals in sexual assault cases, period, of any kind. Absolutely hate them. And I don't like, okay, there are a lot of cases that I've covered where the victims did not want a plea deal and the prosecutors made plea deals. Happens all the time because the prosecutors justify it by saying, well, the victim doesn't know the law. They don't know how to prove evidence. They don't understand our case is a little bit shaky.
Right.
We're the experts here, and we don't want to take a risk of going to trial and not getting a conviction. This guy's willing to cut a deal. All those things, okay? But here's a situation where you let the family have the say, and then there's situations where you don't. I think it should just be one way or the other. Either you're going to let the families decide or you're going to let the court system decide. Picking and choosing is where I have an issue with it.
What was
if you have video of this guy doing this, you've got enough evidence. You don't even need her to testify. Why she got to testify? You got a video.
Well, I mean, I think it's deeper than that. But what was the maximum sentence, though? It was 25 years?
330 years
No. I'm sorry.
His minimum sentence had they not cut a deal.
So 25 years, and he's got to serve 85% of the 25.
So about 20.
So about 20 years. And how old was he?
I mean, it doesn't say, Kelly. What does that have to do with it?
Well, I'm trying to see if they're
younger looking guy looks to be in his 20s.
Well, what I'm saying is that I don't know if their justification was that he would be
40.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at, is that he doesn't even look like he's.
I know what you were trying to say. You were trying to say if he was 80.
Yeah, then.
I mean, that's a life sentence, but I don't like it.
I don't either. I understand.
I understand it,
but I don't like it. And but obviously, this is just an article. We don't know all the ins and outs. We don't know other information or what that might affect it.
Seems like they had enough evidence with videos and text and all these things that we're talking about. You didn't need her to testify to get a conviction.
Yeah.
If you got a video of the guy sexually assaulting her, I mean, that's even better than testimony.
Does it say the video was her actually sexually assaulting, or was it just the video of the attack, like when he kidnapped her and drove her around?
20 videos depicting portions of the assault. 20 videos.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know, but I'm never going to stand here and say they just screwed up, because I don't think there's got to be something that I don't know that would justify
they can't
this.
Just screw up?
I just would be hard pressed to believe that. I mean, this is Florida. Florida is very tough on this type of stuff.
But not every prosecutor in Florida isn't lazy. I look at this as lazy prosecution. That's what I look at this as. Believe me, there's prosecutors out there, Kelly, that are burnt out, and they cut plea deals all the time they shouldn't cut. And listeners out there right now are like, he's right.
Well, I don't know about that. I didn't jump to that conclusion at all. I feel like...
Seems like it to me.
It just seems like they were maybe so sympathetic to the victim that if the victim was happy with that and it was a guaranteed... I don't know that it's late. See, I'm very empathetic to a victim. So I look at it from the lens of, if they were like, look, if he gets 25 years or more, we are happy. We don't want to put our child through this. We don't want her to have to relive this. She's already traumatized. She's already not wanting to go to school. She's already not wanting to have relationships with whatever. Then
But Kelly, he's going to get out, and he could do that to someone else.
He could, but
so they don't get to choose when a sex offender gets out and does it to someone else.
Yeah, but you're also...
That's what pisses me off. Yes, I'm assuming he's gonna.
I know.
100%.
I know. But what I'm saying is the assumption that he's going to do it again, which I agree he would do it again. But the assumption of that, I cannot put that weight on the shoulders of a 13-year-old girl and say, we got to do this for the future person. I mean, we're dealing with your victim. You were the victim here. And I just do really, if this was we don't know the condition of that kid either. That kid, this could have absolutely just debilitated her.
Oh, sure it did.
So
a normal kid, no condition it would have, but you are allowing this person to make the decision on whether this guy stays in prison for life or gets released. Especially a 13-year-old, you're not going to want to. They don't understand the ramifications of if he gets out. I don't believe sexual predators can be rehabilitated.
They can't. We know that.
Okay, well, he's a sexual predator.
Yeah, but there's also, he's got to serve the 85%.
20 years.
He's guaranteed to be in there for the 20 years. And we also don't know that if there's any other pending cases against him, that maybe they're looking at the long game.
Yeah, but you're speculating.
I am speculating.
We're assuming there's not, because nowhere does it say that.
But if there was, it could be part of the long-term game. I'm just saying, there's got to be more to this. I just would be hard-pressed to believe they were like, 25 sounds good.
I mean, when the judge is sitting there saying, you sure you want to do 25 years?
I know.
It's 330 years minimum. You sure you want? And they're sitting there saying, oh, yeah, she didn't want to testify. Well, prosecute it without her testimony. You got enough evidence here. This is lazy. This is my opinion.
Yeah.
I understand that you don't want to believe that. But if you got that many videos and you've got all this other CSAM material on this boy's phone, people have been found guilty for less.
Yeah, but assault, just because it says assault, 20 assault videos doesn't mean that it's the sexual part of it. He could have been slapping her. He kidnapped her. That's part of all of that. So I don't know what the videos actually depict. And so they may feel like she's got to testify to the sexual component of it to meet the muster, to get the 300 and something years. And that's what I'm getting at here. So without her testimony, I think that they feel like they would have a damaged case to get that much of a sentence, is what I'm saying. We don't know.
We don't know. And I don't know what you're right. I don't know what they had on the videos. One could infer that there was, some of the actual sex involved in this sexual assault that were on those videos, because obviously that sort of thing turned this sicko on.
Yeah. Just like the other guy that filmed when he raped the mom and the daughter.
Exactly. And he agreed to the 25 years. So he must have thought they had enough evidence that if he didn't agree, he was going to go to jail for at least 25 years. Yeah. They could have rolled 50. It just seems lazy to me.
50.
Seems lazy to me. Yeah. I just don't like plea agreements on sexual assault cases unless there is just absolutely no evidence. And this, to me, seems like they had enough evidence. I've seen people get convicted with less.
I agree. All right.
Sorry, I got passion on that one.
No,
but I don't like sex assault cases.
Passion's
like that.
good. Passion is good. Ted Nugent in a big video like years ago, he said, I don't like repeat offenders. I like dead offenders. And I will never forget him saying that because it kind of fits here. I don't like sex offenders. I like dead sex offenders, because there is no way that you're going to ever make me feel okay about offending a child like that. None.
Yeah.
All right. So did you listen to Tupac? Pac's music?
Yeah,
I did too.
Very much.
Yeah, I grew up with Pac. I liked him. I know I'm
Pac.
Pac, man.
I grew up with Pac.
I did, and I will admit that I am
his friends call him Pac, not Tupac.
Pac, man.
I get it.
Hugging on my mama from a jail cell.
So what's your point? Let's get into it.
My point is that the loss of him affected people that really did like his music and thought that he was talented. And so this case of Tupac Shakur's killing has been unresolved for decades, but now the man that is charged in his 1996 killing in Las Vegas is going to trial. And I'm looking forward to this one personally. Keefe D, this is Dwayne Davis, 63, faces one charge of murder with a deadly weapon with the intent to promote, further, or assist a criminal gang in Shakur's death. Jury selection begins Monday with the trial scheduled to last about a month. The trial will bring to head one of the biggest mysteries in the hip-hop world that gripped the public for decades. Shakur, who also went by the stage names Tupac and Machiavelli, is considered one of the most influential rappers of all time. Shakur was shot in Las Vegas on September 7th, 1996, and he was in a black BMW with music mogul Marion Suge Knight on their way to Club 662, where Shakur was scheduled to perform when a white Cadillac pulled up beside them. Gunfire erupted. Shakur, who was in the passenger seat, was shot multiple times and died 6 days later while Knight survived. The case went cold until recent years when public statements and a tell-all memoir from Davis revived the case. He was the leader of Southside Compton Crips at the time of Shakur's death. Davis was arrested in 2023 and pled not guilty. And so far, we know that the trial is going to take place in Clark County District Court in Vegas with Judge Carly Kearney presiding over the case. Jury selection's Monday. That's going to take a couple of days. Inside the courtroom, seats for the public will be in short supply, and they're going to do a daily lottery to allow you the chance to go in. A room on the second floor of the court will be open to the public and will show a live feed of the trial. Shakur's cousin,
imagine that,
I know, was among the family and supporters outside the courthouse Monday morning, and he's saying, justice needs to be served, and whoever had anything to do with this, whoever set it up, whoever had a hand in it, should be locked up and in prison. The trial likely won't answer who pulled the trigger because prosecutors are not arguing that Davis is the one who actually pulled the trigger that night, but it's going to confirm, so it won't confirm that. But they're still going to go through all of this. Expected to testify, they say 35 to 45 witnesses. And there's a whole lot here that you can go research. It goes on and on and on. But celebrities could be at the trial and called into this. And we'll see where it goes.
I'm going to break it down for the people out there just quickly because I have studied this case for years. And so it is of almost everybody's belief in existence that Baby Lane, who is Keefe D's nephew, is actually the one that killed Tupac. Now, you may know, or you may be familiar with a Las Vegas fight after the Mike Tyson fight where Tupac, Suge, and a bunch of these guys from Death Row Records were leaving the fight. They see Baby Lane inside of the, I believe it was the Mirage or it might have been the Grand in Las Vegas where that fight was held. They got in a fist fight, Tupac did, with him in the lobby of that casino because he was wearing a death row chain that was stolen by one of Tupac's friends that was in Death Row Records. Tupac sees this. Hey, that's the guy that stole the chain. Goes over there and they get to fisticuffs. It gets basically Baby Lane gets stomped out by the whole crew, and Tupac, Biggie leave. They're headed to Club 226, I think it's called, or something similar to that. 662. Yeah. They're headed to Club 662, and they get shot at a red light. And what happened was two girls pulled up. Tupac's hollering at him outside the car. Hey, what's up? Follow us to the club. And basically these guys pulled up and just started shooting. Now, everybody in that other car is dead at this point in time. Baby Lane was actually killed a couple of days later in a gang fight. And there were two other people in the car aside from who's on trial right now, Keefe D, and those other two people are also dead. Keefe D is the only one alive. They do not think that he shot Tupac. They think he gave the gun to his nephew and said, you're going to handle this. And look, Baby Lane was about it. He said, give me that gun. And he shot allegedly, he shot Tupac and Biggie. I mean, and not Biggie, Tupac and Suge. Mm-hmm. And so this is prosecution really for the direction that Keefe D gave Baby Lane on this killing. And
in the book,
he talks about it.
Davis alleges in the book that it was Diddy who wanted Knight and Shakur dead, and he offered
I covered
Davis
that in my podcast
money to kill them. So
$2 million, I believe it was, or $1 million.
Diddy's denied, obviously, any of this. Diddy just hasn't done anything. No. If you ask him,
no, he says that's all BS. He doesn't admit to it. But he not only said that in his book, he also went on a very popular podcast that a guy that he basically podcasts all the rappers out there. Mm-hmm. He went on his podcast and talked about it. And the reason he talked about it was he had a proffer agreement that was in place during all of this because they were trying to get to the bottom of who killed Tupac. Mm-hmm. So at the time when all these people were alive, they were trying to get Keefe D to tell them. They worked a proffer agreement with him where whatever he said he could not be prosecuted for. But when he was on these shows, he assumed he was still under that proffer agreement, and he wasn't. Mm. And he went and talked about it. In the case of the book, his defense for that is he said he had a ghostwriter write it. That he didn't write it, he never said it. The ghostwriter wrote it. Mm. That may be, I mean, I don't think that Keefe D really sat down and wrote a book. So that may be really true that he had a ghostwriter, but who do you think told the ghostwriter? The talking points. And, so we'll see what happens. It is a big case. But unfortunately, the person who really killed Tupac, in the belief of just about everyone, is already dead and won't face justice, at least through our earth.
Yeah.
He'll face it from Jesus Christ if you're a believer like I do. Yeah. He's going to face that justice. But there you have it. All right, Kelly Jennings, I think that's a wrap for today.
I had a good time. These were some good stories. We'll have to keep following up.
Thank you to everyone for listening, supporting, share this podcast wherever you hear it. And until next time, I'm Jim Chapman.
And I'm Kelly Jennings.
And we are your host of Crime
Wire
Weekly.